Welcome to the 2022 Middle School Speech Contest. My name is Tara Kristen. This is my 15th year teaching and coaching speech for FWCS. I can't believe this is my 10th year as the middle school speech coordinator for the district. It's always been one of my favorite events here in Fort Wayne Community Schools, and I'm honored to coordinate such a wonderful program. Congratulations to all these talented participants behind me who have made it this far, and good luck today. To start with, I would like to introduce our fantastic panel of judges behind you. First off is Linda Dare. Linda is the former coordinator of FWCS Middle School Contest. She taught language arts, speech, and drama at Memorial Park Middle School for 15 years, as well as composition at IPFW for 15 years. She coached Memorial Park Middle School speech team and directed plays at Memorial Park. Linda is currently a real estate investor. Please welcome Linda Dare. Next, we have Melissa Bieber. Melissa is the Director of Business Advocacy for Greater Fort Wayne Incorporated. She is responsible for the development and advancement of Greater Fort Wayne Incorporated's public policy initiatives. She serves to educate investors, elected officials, and the community on business issues. Melissa holds a bachelor's degree in political science and psychology from Purdue University and a master of public management from Indiana University, Purdue University, Fort Wayne. Melissa is a native of Fort Wayne and is active in the community. She is a past board member for Young Leaders of Northeast Indiana. She serves on a committee called SCAN and currently serves on the board of Goodwill Industries of Northeast Indiana as the immediate past chair. Melissa's role at Greater Fort Wayne gives many opportunities for public speaking in both small and large settings. She presents Greater Fort Wayne Incorporated's vision to the community. She has moderated panel discussions, given educational presentations, and presented at their annual meetings. Please welcome Melissa Bieber. Our final judge is Dr. Mark Daniel. Dr. Daniel is the second Fort Wayne Community School alumni to become Fort Wayne Community Schools and superintendent in the district's history. He graduated from Northside, and his first teaching job was at Northside High School, where he taught advanced algebra, geometry, business law, accounting, and skills for living. He also coached football, basketball, baseball, track, and golf. He left Northside to become assistant principal at Leo Junior Senior High School in 1995 and took over as Leo principal in 1998, a position he held for 12 years. In 2010, he became superintendent of a district in Michigan, and in 2014, he was hired as superintendent of a district in Illinois. He came back to Fort Wayne in 2020 and became the 15th superintendent of Fort Wayne Community Schools on July 1st, 2020. Please welcome Superintendent Dr. Mark. And finally, our MC for the speech contest, Miss Cookie Rutledge. Cookie Rutledge worked at FWCS for 33 years as a language arts teacher, so the middle school speech contest has always been close to her heart. She also served as assistant speech coach for 10 years at a local high school where she prepared students for local, state, and national competitions. She graciously took on the role of MC last year. In a statement from Cookie, she says, "As an ever-learning speech coach, I watched Dr. Betty Stein moderate this speech contest for more than 2 decades. Her zeal and enthusiasm for these young people was amazing, and her oratorical skills were unmatched. I follow in her footsteps with great humility and honor." Please welcome our MC for this year, Cookie Rutledge.
Well, good afternoon, Superintendent Daniel, principals, speech coaches, parents, and student speakers. How wonderful that we've all come together to witness another middle school speech competition. As a middle school teacher of more than 30 years, it has been my great pleasure to help students prepare for this competition by helping them decide on topics of interest, supporting their efforts to write a strong speech, and listening to those speeches so many times that I could recite them by myself. This has never been anything but a labor of love for me. I could never doubt the true value of this competition because each year of my tenure, Dr. Betty Stein would call me and ask, I quote, "Cookie, How many good speakers do you have at school this year? When I'd give her a count, she'd add, well, I should think you would have been able to have gotten more students than the ones that you have. Dr. Stein was a fierce advocate and supporter of our school district. She always believed that Fort Wayne Community Schools did things bigger and better than any other district, and I agree with her. And she believed that every middle school student should be skilled in public speaking. We owe this competition in large part to her tenacity. At one time, this competition was held in the school buildings. Most people seemed to think that that was okay, but Dr. Betty did not. She realized the time and effort that both teachers and students were putting into this event. And so she talked to various administrators, and when she didn't receive what she wanted to hear, the story goes that she went to see the wife of then Superintendent Greil. She stated her case to him, or to his wife, and 3 days later, wouldn't you know it, the speech competition was taken from the buildings and put into the Greil boardroom. That shows the tenacity of our Dr. Stein. Today, before we do anything else, I think it only fair to give honor to Dr. Betty Stein, longtime Fort Wayne Community Schools teacher and community activist, for her determination to give this competition the value and the honor it deserves. I know she is looking down on us today with a smile on her face. So let's say thank you to Dr. Betty. And now our first speech, My Future Shouldn't Be Determined by a Test.
My future shouldn't be determined by a test. Standardized tests have been a part of American education since the mid-1800s. Their use skyrocketed after 2002's No Child Left Behind Act, NCLB, mandated annual testing in all 50 states. Standardized tests are a major cause of stress in middle school and high school students all across the country. Students spend hours and hours of time preparing for a test that they believe decides their future, when they should be spending that time having fun or learning useful information that they could apply later on in life. State tests should be abolished because test scores are not adequate predictions of future success. State tests put too much pressure on kids and they waste valuable time. State tests should be abolished because test scores are not adequate in predictions of the future success. For example A, studying 55,084 Chicago public schools, students found that high school GPAs are 5 times more accurate than ACT scores at predicting college graduation. If my future were determined just by my performance on a standardized test, I wouldn't be here. I guarantee you that. Michelle Obama. As many of us know, she graduated from Princeton University and Harvard Law School, won many awards, and became a published author. Not to mention, she happened to be married to a president, and to think the results of a standardized test could have limited her from achieving that potential. Students spend hours and hours of preparing for a test that they believe decides their future, when in reality it could be limiting their potential because they aren't the best test takers. There are much better ways to prove you know information. For example, project-based learning. Now, to be fair, there are benefits to testing. It's said that the more students test, the better they become at test. It also allows students to be measured on a relatively level playing field. When it comes to enrichment classes or even college entrance exams, it's easiest to compare students on something that they have all taken. Tests are also a quick way to show teachers that weaknesses students have and where they need help on that and where they need help on a particular topic. With those positives in mind, it's still important that state tests should also be abolished because despite that state tests put too much pressure on kids, standardized testing is something nearly all students must complete every year. However, many students argue that the tests produce more stress and cause students to have a more negative attitude towards school, and overall tend to not accurately show a student's academic ability. According to Texas A&M University researchers Jennifer Hiesel, Emma Adam, and David Figlow, on average, students have 15% more cortisol in their systems in the homeroom period before a standardized test that on days with no high-stake test. In this article for his Maryland high school newspaper, the Lion's Tail student Lincoln Aftergood wrote, "This can lead to students resenting learning and believing that they are worse than everyone else because of their low score. Standardized tests put a damper on the positives of learning and lead students to more heavily focused on the negatives. Although many people believe state tests are important to evaluate the achievement of children, the skills they need to learn and the effectiveness of schools is in teaching these skills. They fail to realize that these tests produce so much stress and anxiety, and sometimes these tests may not truly reflect their abilities. A student may have a deep knowledge of a particular subject but receive no acknowledgement for it because his or her test score may have been low. In conclusion, state tests should be abolished because these tests produce so much stress and anxiety, does not predict the future success of the student, and do truly not reflect their abilities. We do not deserve to be judged by a score. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker number one, and I'm sure that all of your teachers would agree with that position. So let's talk about what these young people have gone through, because as we look at them today, all of them are winners. First of all, they've had to come up with a speech topic, and so their teachers helped them come up with something that they felt was interesting and something that particularly or held particular interest for each one of them. And then the teachers helped them put together a 3 to 5 argumentative speech. They had to have supportive arguments. It was not just for the sake of getting up and saying something. You know, each day in our own lives, you and I have to grapple with that because we're just giving our opinions when we have discussions. But these young people have to be able to substantiate the things that they're saying. And then they have to work tirelessly to present these speeches, not only in front of adults, but also in front of their classmates. And that's probably one of the most difficult things they do. And after they present them in front of classmate after classmate and class after class, then those speeches are evaluated by a group of individuals from their school, and a winner is selected from each school. So by the time that these students arrive here to entertain you, to show you how great they are, they have gone through a grueling process. And with that grueling process having talked about, I will continue this after we hear from speaker number 2. This speech isn't boring, you're just sleepy.
Let me try that again. So I had two choices to write about for this assignment. I could write about either school start times or cafeteria food. The thing is, my grandma works in the cafeteria, so I kind of only had one option here. Teens face an incredibly challenging world, states one article titled Later Start Times for Teens. While the time school starts may seem trivial to most, it is in fact a very important issue. Multiple studies have found that a large percentage of American middle and high school students start before the recommended start time of 8:30 a.m. FWCS middle schools need to start later because it would reduce the amount of kids falling asleep in class, lead to better student sleep cycles, and improve students' grades. One major benefit of having a later school start time is that students are less likely to fall asleep in class. Dr. Judith Owens, a professor of neurology at Harvard Medical School, states that waking up at 5 to 6 a.m. for 7 a.m. school start time for teens is like waking up every day at 3 to 4 a.m. for adults and being expected to function. When students don't get enough sleep at night, they tend to make up for lost time during the day, or more specifically in school. With better sleep at night and less daytime sleepiness, students are less likely to fall asleep in class. Although, let's face it, you have those few who still will. Another way students are affected by a later start time is that they reach a healthier sleep cycle. Research from the article Later School Start Times Means Better Rested Kids has shown that puberty triggers a shift in adolescent sleep cycles, making it harder to fall asleep at night. Sadly, the early school start time doesn't allow for the shifted sleep cycle's later wake-up time to be met. Come on, stay awake. I'm almost done here. The last topic I'll cover is one that may be thought most important by teachers, a student's grades. Research from an article titled Should School Start Later reported that studies have shown that students who get enough sleep, 8 to 10 hours, have better test scores. Now, as said, tests rank high in points, therefore affect grades more. With better test scores, students will get higher grades. Some may say that changing to a later school start time will lead to chaos in many parents' schedules. Sure, parents may have a little trouble adjusting getting their kids later rides to school, but resilience and adaptability is part of human nature. Bus schedules can and will be changed, and for those who live away from a bus route, an older sibling or friend's parent can take them if need be. Later school start times would lead to less student sleepiness, better student sleep cycles, and improved students' grades. FWCS school board and administration need to change middle schoolers' start time to later because, like has already been done for high schoolers. But without proper sleep, students will start struggling academically, making it difficult to succeed in life. If I messed up in there, just know I did not get enough sleep last night. Hey.
Well, thank you, speaker number 2. You know, your superintendent is here today, so I'm sure he'll take this message back to school board. Well, there are other people who have made sure that these young people are so successful. And so let's start with the very first individuals they've ever met. Parents of all of these wonderful young people who are behind me, will you please stand up if you're in the audience today? Let's give them a hand. Yay for you. Yay. Congratulations to you. What a great job you've done. You know, sometimes we have a tendency to talk about all of the failings of our young people, but when we look at all of these tremendous young people who were here today, who are standing in front of us, giving these wonderful speeches, we know that the city of Fort Wayne is going to be in good hands in the future. So let's go to the next group of individuals. All of the speech coaches that have tutored and helped these young people, would you please stand? Thank you so much. I know I see you as the students are here giving their speeches, you're mouthing and like on the edges of your seats. You've done good jobs. Congratulations. And with that having been said, we are now ready for our third speaker, my 2 cents on the cent.
What could 200 pennies buy you? A piece of candy. I'm sorry.
Say one thing really quick.
Okay.
Try to say it. Just
Uh,
say.
Don't be so loud.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Alright. What could 200 pennies buy you? A piece of candy. What could 8 quarters buy you? The same piece of candy. The difference is 200 pennies weigh over 1 pound. No one in their right mind would ever carry that much weight around, and they wouldn't have to, since instead they could carry just 8 quarters or even $2. Americans would be better off without the penny because it's bad for the environment, it's a waste of time to count, and it's a waste of our money. Americans would be better off without the penny because it's bad for the environment, it's a waste of time to count, and it's a waste of our money. For one, the penny has majorly affected our environment. According to the Smithsonian Institution, greenhouse gas emissions for copper mining operations in 2007 averaged 2.45 tons of carbon dioxide for every ton of copper produced, compared with 0.58 tons of carbon dioxide per ton of zinc. Carbon dioxide is the most dangerous and prevalent greenhouse gas according to National Geographic, which means we probably don't want to be making more of it. According to CoinNews.net, the Mint, a coin producer, made 8.15 billion pennies in 2014, those of which would have emitted 14,071 tons of carbon dioxide if you do the math. While 14,000 tons is not a comparable amount to some of the bigger operations' damage, it is certainly not a negligible amount, and we will see direct negative effects stemming from production of the penny if we don't find a better way to produce it. Another issue is that Americans drop, lose, and throw out over $62 million worth of pennies every single year, which end up being wasted and flushed out into our rivers, ponds, and lakes. What's more is that, for one, the penny is a waste of... What's more is that getting rid of the penny would save us time. Not everyone's a quick thinker when it comes to math, and those extra seconds it takes to add and count change really add up, especially if you work as a cashier for a full-time job. According to Greg Mankiw, a professor of economics at Harvard, 120 million hours a year are wasted counting the penny, counting both the time of the customer and store employee. While not the most pressing problem, there's no reason why someone should waste that much time counting a cent. Not only is the penny a waste of time, it's also a waste of money. According to MontecoBulletin.com, 8 billion pennies are made each year. The Department of Treasury estimates that $62 million, or 8% of what is produced, is lost each year. According to the New York Times, in 2015, making pennies cost taxpayers almost $39 million. Is that where you want to see your money go? As the National Public Radio has stated, the penny is basically worthless. It costs the U.S. government 2 cents to produce every 1 penny, which brings us to another fact, that for every 10 pennies you spend, it will cost the U.S. government 20. And how does that make sense? Now I know what you're thinking. If we round prices to 5s and 0s, prices will go up and people will be charged more. One reason why that argument falls flat is because if prices are rounded, some will go up and some will go down. Any price with an end digit of less than 5 will actually cost less. So since some prices are higher and some are lower, they will balance each other out over time. To conclude, while it may have been a novel concept when it was first introduced, now the penny is more of a burden than anything. In other words, it has outlived its usefulness. Americans would be better off without the penny because it's bad for the environment, it's a waste of time to count, and it's a waste of our money. And that's my 2 cents on the cent.
Wow, speaker number 3. Wasn't that wonderful? Listen, I've not seen such professionalism since that evening at the Academy Awards, right? When Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. Hey, so speaker number 3, you handled this beautifully today. There's one group of individuals that we forgot to applaud today, and that are the school principals. Are any of you here today? If so, would you please stand and let's give them a hand? Any of them? Yay, our principals. No detentions for you young people, okay? You've made it. So let's talk a little bit about glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking. The Mayo Clinic took a little survey, and the Mayo Clinic from that survey has said that 73% of those of us who live in America suffer from this fear of public speaking. Now, they looked at those of us who have a fear of snakes, a fear of heights, a fear of flying, fear of dogs, fear of thunder and lightning, nobody here, fear of injections, and other fears, which I will talk about you. Are you ready? Not yet. Okay. Fear of situations where escape may be difficult, fear of germs, fear of small spaces, and listen to this, fear of dying from an airplane crash. But with all of those fears, the number one fear in America is the fear of getting up and speaking in front of an audience. So with that having been said, look at these wonderful young people again, and let's give them another round of applause. And now, speaker number 4, America's Healthcare, the silent killer.
Imagine losing a loved one because healthcare wasn't affordable. Imagine losing your own life because you can't afford healthcare. According to CNN.com, Leslie Elder, 63, died without insurance coverage. As Leslie wrote on a Facebook message to her friend Liz Jacobs, her lungs filled with fluid over several months. She was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Leslie didn't have to die. In fact, she would still be here today if she could afford healthcare. According to HealthSystemTracker.org, in 2020, health spending per person in the United States was $11,946, which is over $4,000 more expensive than any other high-income nation. Healthcare should be free because it is too expensive, some people can't afford it, and the programs we have in place are simply not enough. To begin with, healthcare should be free because it is too expensive. You shouldn't have to take out a small loan just for a doctor to tell you that you have a cold. As stated in Procon.org, the United States is the only nation among the 38 OECD nations that does not have universal health care, neither practice or by constitutional right. Over 130 countries have a right to health care in their national constitutions, so why don't we? So how expensive is it really? Let's take a look at an example. Debt.org says that the average cost of a heart valve replacement is $170,000, and that doesn't even include the hidden fees, such as anesthesia. I don't know about you, but my parents don't have the money just lying around. Believe me, I've asked for some. Furthermore, healthcare should be free because many people can't afford it. Census.gov says that in 2020, 28 million Americans did not have healthcare at any point during the year. Uninsured rates for children under 19 in poverty rose 1.6 percentage points to 9.3% from 2018 to 2020. According to NBC.com, over half of Americans with children are very or moderately concerned about healthcare costs. A right to healthcare can make medical services affordable for everyone. Stated in TheGuardian.com, 25% of Americans delay medical help because of healthcare costs. Not only that, but 56% of Americans report having at least one medical hardship. In fact, medical debt is the #1 reason people file for bankruptcy in America. Even though there are many options that help Americans with medical bills, such as Medicaid and Medicare, these programs are simply not enough and not everyone in America has access to them. So what exactly is Medicaid and Medicare? Forbes.com defines Medicare as a program that helps Americans with that. Forbes.com defines Medicare as a program that helps Americans that are disabled, low-income families, and pregnant women, but only if you're at 65 years or older. People that qualify for Social Security also qualify for Medicare. Medicaid, on the other hand, is a program that helps Americans, that provides insurance for Americans with medical bills. As you can see, there are some great programs that are being offered. But what about the rest of the country? What about the 35-year-old who isn't pregnant, doesn't have kids, isn't disabled, but barely reaches above the threshold of income? An unfortunate accident or a major surgery could bankrupt her almost immediately. It just isn't right. Healthcare should be free because it is too expensive, some people can't afford it, and the programs we have in place are simply not enough. A right to healthcare could save lives. Instituting a right to healthcare would stop a lot of problems by improving public health and reducing overall healthcare spending. Free healthcare isn't a novel idea. Look at all the other successful countries like Germany, Italy, Norway, Sweden, and France, just to name a few. We need to start looking at how these countries are able to provide universal health care for all their citizens. The time for America to join the pack is now. I will leave you with a quote from American journalist Suzanne Gordon, who said that America must deal once and for all with an utterly irrational healthcare system that allows private interests to make billions of profits from the pain and suffering of their fellow citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker number 4. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had an interest in this, but now I do. Okay, right. As a member of AARP, I am going to support this proposition for sure. Okay, America's health care. So let's talk about the next steps in the lives of these young people. And that would be membership in on their high school speech, or in their high school speech clubs. When you talk about the next steps in this, in their speech journeys, you're talking about those of you who are parents. If they would join their high school speech clubs, you're going to talk about getting up or being on buses at 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings and having those students return sometimes at 8 or 9 p.m. on Saturday evenings. But you're going to have them compete against local schools and with schools within the region. You're going to have them competing at the state and national competitions. I know because I was a speech parent and I did it for more years than I really hope to remember. The important thing, though, about that is that in speech, there's so many wonderful opportunities. And I have to laugh because, you know, I watched Julian Tikaram, as many of you have seen her on television. She was once in the morning. Now here she is. She's like an anchor that's being trained to take the place of one of the other more veteran anchors very soon. And I know and remember when I was on the bus with her early in the morning going to those speech tournaments. And so there is going to be life after middle school speech. There's going to be high school speech. And I'm going to tell you about that some more after we hear from speaker number 5 on the unspoken history of Asian hate.
Had people been more educated, then maybe 61-year-old Yao Pan Ma wouldn't have been physically assaulted to the point of hospitalization and death. 35-year-old Christina Yuna Lee wouldn't have been stabbed to death in her own apartment. 19-year-old Christian Hall would have gotten the mental help he needed and wouldn't have been shot. There are so many more victims of Asian hate, and the severity ranges from verbal insults to damaged businesses and even to murder. With that being said, so much Asian culture is consumed globally. Anime, K-pop, TV shows, food, heck, even our looks. So much of it is shared amongst other cultures and people, or sometimes even robbed from us. However, when our people are being discriminated against, everyone suddenly turns a blind eye. Those same people that are so obsessed with us and our cultures suddenly choose to ignore us. Racism against Asians is without a doubt a huge problem in society currently. Asian history being ignored or blown out of proportion, the lack of educated people on the internet, and the recent surge of hate crimes all proves why our schools should include Asians in discussions about preventing racism. Firstly, Asian history is so notably ignored within the U.S. education system. The Asian American and Pacific Islander community are often depicted in U.S. history lessons as foreigners or national security threats, as opposed to people who lived and worked in America, as said by Time magazine. Asians are mentioned within history classes, but that's on rare occasions. Even when we are mentioned, it's in a negative spotlight. This is understandable because a part of teaching history is about how other nations have affected America. Although if you only point out the flaws of someone or something, then everyone's views will be affected. Asian countries should be put in a positive spotlight as well. For example, the bombing of Pearl Harbor was an attack by Japanese air forces who damaged or even destroyed hundreds of military mobiles and killed thousands. It was a devastating time and even sparked a world war, but that didn't mean everyone of Japanese descent was guilty. A little over 100,000 Japanese American citizens were relocated to makeshift internment camps with horrible conditions. Those innocent American citizens experienced a huge wave of sudden racism and mistreatment because of that war. Moving forward, the lack of properly educated people within the media also counts to racism towards Asians. In 2020, a makeup trend called the fox-eye trend was popularized with social media like TikTok and Instagram. The fox-eye trend, where one applies makeup, poses their face, or undergoes plastic surgery so the eyes and brows appear to slant upwards, is unapologetic cultural appropriation. Celebrities like Bella Hadid and Megan Fox have participated and in turn popularized the trend even further. To these white influencers, the fox-eyed look is something that they can achieve and get rid of whenever they want. But to Asians that went through discrimination and oppression, it's something that some had to learn to love. It's cultural appropriation because these white influencers that are beautiful within the Western standards can unapologetically mimic our features that are made fun of for decades. Critics argue that this sensitive topic is in fact already taught within public schools, and this is true to an extent. Public schools tend to focus more on racism towards the Black community or in the indigenous community. Both communities did so much for America and played vital roles in the history as well as the development of this country, which is why they're taught a lot more. However, now America is known as a melting pot because of the diversity in different cultures, which in turn shows why teaching the prevention of discrimination among other races and cultures should be heavily considered. Especially recently, Asians have been experiencing racial injustice. This is so obviously due to the lack of education of some. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Philosopher George Santayana's quote goes, "This is exactly why history is taught. Strong actions of the past don't repeat. Previous occurrences of racial injustice, or known as xenophobia, should be used as an example in classrooms of how not to treat others." To conclude, Asians should also be included in discussions about preventing racism. Not just because of the fact that this isn't taught enough or properly, but also because it discourages early acts of racism amongst children. From Asian history being ignored, to uneducated influencers with a big following, and even to the fact that there's a recent spike in hate crimes, racism towards Asians should be taught at schools. The notion that Asian Americans are foreigners and outsiders makes it easier for them to be seen as reasonable targets where people can direct frustration, anger, fear, and aggression, including the spate of xenophobia and anti-Asian violence we've seen during this pandemic. A quote from counseling psychology professor Sri Lan Chen. Adding on to that quote, a national report from the Stop AAPI Hate website shows that from March 19, 2020 to December 31st, 2021, a total of 10.9 thousand hate incidents directed at Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders were reported to the website. 4.6 thousand of those were reported in 2020, while 6.2 thousand of those were reported in 2021. Asians, as well as many other racial minorities, should not grow up experiencing racism and not being able to identify it. These young kids should be proud of their ancestors and heritage, not wishing they looked lighter, or their parents spoke English more fluently, or even to the fact that they don't eat the same foods as their peers. They shouldn't have to use being slurs, having their facial features mocked, or even have to fear being stabbed in a Walmart parking lot, all because of their skin. Actions can be taken to prevent future generations from experiencing these things. And we can start right now by fixing our education curriculums to be more diverse and inclusive when educating others on preventing racism.
Thank you. Thank you, speaker number 5. You know, I'm always so proud of Fort Wayne Community Schools. I know that Northwood Middle School has more than 30 students representing different language groups, and I know that Southside has more than 50 different language groups. And so if any district can help solve this problem, it's Fort Wayne Community Schools. And I know that all of our teachers are working to make sure that we are inclusive, that we embrace all cultures. So once again, speaker number 5, thank you for bringing it once again to our attention. So let's talk about middle school and what makes middle school such a unique place. Let's go with some middle school jokes. Are you ready? Okay. So to a middle school math teacher, what is the favorite snake? A, python. P-I-T-H-O-N. Come on, work with me a little bit, okay? Middle school jokes. Why is a math book so unhappy? It has lots of problems. See, right behind me, they know. Okay. So a teacher was talking to a group to her middle school social studies class, and she asked, "Can you tell me where they signed the Declaration of Independence?" Who knows? They've all gone to middle school. Give yourselves a hand. They knew that at the bottom. And having said that, and you're saying, please get out of here. No, I'm not. You're going to have me for another half hour. We're now ready to have speaker number 6, shooting down the Second Amendment.
"316 people are shot every day in the United States. A mother, a father, a sister, a brother, and a friend. Each day we lose a meaningful life. However, this could all be prevented with stricter gun control. What is gun control? According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, gun control refers to any legal measure intended to prevent or restrict the sale and use of firearms. And according to worldpopulation.org, about 72% of all murders across the nation involve the use of guns. While some Americans believe that the government should strictly regulate gun ownership because they often fall into the wrong hands, others believe that it shouldn't for self-defense. For years, this has been a fiery debate. I believe that the government should use its power to strictly regulate gun ownership because guns often fall into the wrong hands, cause an excessive amount of deaths per year, and overall lead to safer communities. I believe that the government should use its power to strictly regulate gun ownership by controlling the sale and use of firearms because guns often fall into the wrong hands. The primary goal of the United States Gun Control Act is to regulate firearms at a federal level and requires that all legal citizens must be at least 18 years of age to purchase shotguns, rifles, or ammunition. Unfortunately, the Gun Control Act has not been successful enough in stopping guns from falling into the wrong hands. According to everytownresearch.org, mass shootings are often perpetrated by someone who is legally prohibited from possessing a firearm. Majority of these tragic shootings are often caused by someone who is illegally obtaining a firearm. We need stricter control. The Gun Control Act can't properly protect the citizens of this country, and gun violence leads to too many tragedies, leading me to my next point. As we all know, guns often cause an excessive amount of deaths per year. As Procon.org says, that there were 39,707 deaths in 2019, and 60% of those were suicides. If the government isn't mandating the control of these dangerous firearms, then these case numbers will spiral. Not just anyone should be able to get their hands on a weapon that can cause 39,707 deaths. We need stricter control. How many families have to lose a loved one before we take action? In the words of a grieving mother, I just want these people who are picking up these guns and hurting these innocent people to know you have no idea what you're doing to these families. Proponents of the Second Amendment might argue that gun ownership should not be strictly controlled because it takes away a feeling of security, making people feel as if they can't protect themselves. As Procon.org says, that gun control laws infringe upon the right of self-defense and deny people a sense of safety. However, it can be argued that stricter gun control laws will lead to safer communities. As Scientifica America says, more guns do not stop more crimes. Even in your own community, you don't even know who's carrying. As Earth.com says, that overall, the analysis showed that stricter gun control laws were linked in the decrease of the likelihood of students missing school due to feeling unsafe. And as a human, it's a natural reaction to want to feel safe. We need stricter gun control laws because they ensure that illegal firearms don't end up in the wrong hands, decrease unnecessary suffering, and overall create stronger communities. And as a person of color, seeing how these dangerous weapons destroys communities breaks my heart. And it hurts knowing that maybe, just maybe, if guns weren't as easily accessible, then the all too many tragic situations might have had a different outcome. You get so sick and tired of hearing the exact same story with a different name each week. Weak gun laws lead to gang violence, murders, and peaceful protests becoming massacres. Break the cycle. Eliminate the chokehold that guns have on our nation, or before you know it, it could be your story we're reading next week. And that's it. Sorry.
Breaks my heart too. Speaker number 6. It absolutely does. And this is one of the reasons why I recommend that parents, that you really consider making sure that these young people who have such wonderful skills, speaking skills, would become a part of their high school speech teams, because they'd be able to amplify upon these topics that are so important to them and really make a difference in our city. So with that, you didn't think I was going to go away with all of my jokes, right? So you said, please no more. No, just a couple more. Okay, so we're going to do knock-knock jokes. Of course, I do the knock-knock and you do who's there. Okay, knock-knock. Who's there? Weekend. We can do anything we want to do. Middle school, right? Okay, all right. One more. Knock-knock. Who's there? Leon. Lean on me when I'm not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. Okay, all right, okay. It's time for the next speaker. Speaker number 7. Should music be allowed in the classrooms? And you've just found out a reason why maybe it shouldn't be, right? Okay.
Did you know that your brain's attention system has 2 main parts? These parts are called your dorsal and your ventral attention systems, or, as are commonly called, conscious and unconscious attention systems. When you listen to music, you give your unconscious attention system something to focus on instead of, per se, common distractions such as the creaking floorboards, doors, etc. Listening to music increases your ability to focus. Music, according to studies, has been shown to help children focus when working on essays, projects, individual work, and much, much more. Music has also been shown to help with anxiety and stress. It also evokes creativity. As a simple illustration, music provides your unconscious attention system something to focus on, allowing you to study more peacefully. Instead of focusing on all the distractions around you, music allows you to focus on your goals. With no distractions, studying ought to be a breeze. Because music provides your ventral or your unconscious attention system something to focus on, you'll be able to study or work for longer periods of time. Music has been shown to increase your focus and your willpower. According to a study done in 2009 where stationary bikes and 12 college students who were males and healthy tested the effect of music when biking. When the study was conducted, there were 6 music tracks, each with a different tempi. The test lasted 25 minutes and occurred on 3 occasions. On these occasions, the tempo was either normal, sped up by 10%, or slowed down 10%. The distance covered, work done, and the tempo of the music and the tempo of the pedals were measured. When the tempo of the music increased, the work done and distance covered did as well. Next, music has been shown to decrease stress and anxiety. When studying for a test, stress and anxiety is the last thing a student needs. Stress has been shown to affect the ability to make short-term memories, and anxiety has been shown to take lead over other perceiving thoughts. Music has been shown to reduce the levels of stress and anxiety, according to a study approved by the Institutional Review Board at the University of the Pacific. 202 students participated in this study, with 99 students in the passive music branch and 103 in the active. The first step of this study was to appraise the impact of a classroom activity involving music. The second step was to appraise the impact of the music activity on students' future plans to use music as a coping mechanism. The third and final step was to appraise the student level of enjoyment during the musical intervention. The study aimed to test the theory of music as a coping method. And the use of music has been shown to reduce anxiety. However, music can often be seen as a distraction, not only to the person listening, but to others around them too. Music has been shown to cause movement. According to a study done by Daniel Levitin, when we listen to music, our brains force a structure on sounds. Researchers have shown that music stimulates the cerebellum, a part of the brain that's important to motor control. Levitin says that connections between the cerebellum and limbic system may explain why music, movement, and emotion are tied together. Finally, music has been shown to increase productivity and performance in class. A study tested the effect of music on state positive effect, work quality, and time on task. Data from 56 individuals, 41 males and 15 females, showed that with no music, state positive effect and quality of work were lowest, while time on task was the longest with no music. Narrative responses revealed that music listening increased positive moods and increased perception on design while working. It can be concluded from this that music positively affects work performance. According to a study done on 4th grade students, the research showed that playing classical music strongly connected to more motivation towards learning, the ability to stay on task, and the increased amount of positive behaviors. The study showed that classical music completely changed the classroom atmosphere, giving the room a more comfortable vibe. So I urge you, next time you have to study or do any kind of work, throw in some classical music. You may see a difference. I froze up.
Thank you so much. Well, again, I think teachers would agree with this. We know that neurosurgeons tell us that research shows that if they play music, classical music, in the surgical room, that the blood, the flow is better and the clotting is better. So, I mean, look at what these middle school students have come up with as far as their topics are concerned. So let's, since you don't like the music and you didn't enjoy my singing, let's talk about a middle school teachers survey. So middle school teachers have this to say about why they stay in middle school teaching. And of the teachers that we have today, how many of you have always taught in middle school? Any of you? Okay, all right, you're the brave ones, okay. So in a survey of middle school teachers throughout the United States, middle school teachers say that what they enjoy about teaching this age group is that middle school students take risks, R-I-S-K-S. How many of you would agree with that? Too many risks, right? Middle school teachers say that middle school students are curious. They like to get into things. Raise your hand if you agree with that. One more. And middle school teachers say that middle school students love danger and adventure. Yeah. And when I come back, after we have the next speaker, I'm going to give you a couple little stories about danger and adventure. But first, we're going to hear from speaker number 8, the time to stop pollution is now.
$4.2 million people die per year from air pollution. According to the World Health Organization, 99% of people live in areas where they live at increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and many more diseases as a result of these conditions. Not only that, but pollution also destroys the environment and damages marine life. The time to stop pollution is now. Pollution is destroying the environment, damaging marine life, and killing millions of people. The world needs to stop pollution before it is too late. First, pollution is destroying the environment. According to the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, or the UCAR, greenhouse gases are a natural part of Earth's atmosphere, but their increasing amounts in our atmosphere since the early 1900s are causing the climate to warm. While people may not see it, their reliance on fossil fuels since the early 20th century is warming the planet and destroying the environment. The Arctic is currently warming faster than any other region on Earth, partially because of ozone pollution, but also because of positive feedback cycles where warming caused by pollution melts snow and ice, changing Earth's surface and leading to more warming. This devastating pollution is melting an enormous area of Earth's surface covered with hundreds of years of snow and ice. Second, pollution is destroying marine life. According to Simon Reddy of the Pew Charitable Trust, our ocean and the array of species that call it home are succumbing to the poison of plastic. While our pollution may be as small as a spoon or bottle cap, it can still cause disastrous results for our precious marine life. Thousands of animals, from small finches to blue whales, die grisly deaths from eating and getting caught in plastic. Imagine the pain a person would feel if it were them getting caught in plastic and choking till their death. Finally, pollution is killing millions of people. According to Bloomberg, India is failing in efforts to improve its toxic air quality, with the number of smog-plagued cities actually increasing since the launch of national programs to tackle the issue. While governments may be trying to stop pollution, they are failing at stopping it from harming and killing millions of innocent civilians. In conclusion, the time to stop pollution is now. Pollution is destroying the environment, damaging marine life, and killing millions of people. If the people in power truly want to make a difference on this planet, the best thing they can do for it is save it. Which is why the time to stop pollution is now.
Thank you. Once again, what an excellent speech. Thank you, speaker number 8. So let's go back to my little story about middle school students and danger and risk. So Mrs. Kristen and I, this is when she wasn't Mrs. Kristen, were reading this young adult novel by Sharon Draper. And it was right before Christmas, and I told this last year because it's one of my favorite stories. And in this particular young adult novel, there were young people who were taking risks and doing things that they shouldn't have done. And so on this cold winter day, and it was either November or December, this student, a middle school student, a boy, of course, because boys seem to take more risk in middle school than girls do. How many of you agree with that? Okay. How many of you don't agree with that? All right, even Steven, okay. But anyway, this just happened to be a middle school boy, And we've been reading this novel, and we'd also seen A Christmas Story. How many of you have seen that, right? Okay. And so he decided, or someone told him, that what he should do is go and stick his tongue onto the flagpole. He did. And it took the custodian to come out, and I don't remember, Mr. Sheeblewood, I don't remember how they got that tongue off that flagpole. All I remember is that there were portions of that skin on that flagpole, which he then would tell kids after school to come and look at because he was so proud. That's middle school. And with that, we'll go on to speaker number 9, fracking and its implications, a risky business.
Fracking and its implications, a risky business. By me, God too. By the time the frackers are done in the other states, our waters will be worth more than oil. This was said by Farhad Kavari, an economist. To preface this, hydraulic fracturing, colloquially known as fracking, is a method used to extract oil where one drills into a bedrock formation to then inject it and pump it with water to create fractures, which makes the gas in the bedrock formations flow freely. Hence the term fracking. So, is this really bad? Absolutely. It not only damages the environment, but it's also an obsolete way to attain energy. And finally, it contributes to and creates earthquakes. What are the environmental implications that fracking has, you may ask? To start off, to make more room for fracking, nature has to go. This is due to the fact that this is due to the fact that to make more room for infrastructure of all kinds, nature and habitat has to go. The second implication, or rather effect, that fracking has is depleting water resources and the possible risk of contaminating groundwater. This is due to the fact that fracking utilizes water in its method and that janky oil and or gas wells have the possible risk of contaminating groundwater. The third and final environmental implication that fracking has is a long-term one. To put simply, fracking will most likely not be viable in the long run. After all, once the earth is sucked and siphoned out of its finite resources, fracking will be utterly useless. Speaking of utter uselessness, fracking is an obsolete method. You see, fracking is finite. More elaborately, it's a method used to extend finite resources. A simple solution to this is renewable energy. For example, wind power, solar power, and hydropower. Speaking of renewable energy, when you juxtapose the two, that is, renewable energy and fracking, one is egregiously better than the other. This is due to the fact that renewable energy is not only good for the long run, but it's also good for the environment as it doesn't use enormous amounts of water to attain energy, unlike fracking. On the topic of what's good for an environment, fracking creates copious amounts of greenhouse gas emissions, while renewable energy virtually produces none, besides maybe hydropower. What is the correlation and causation between fracking and earthquakes? Start off, fracking may trigger earthquakes. How this may happen is that since fracking requires it to blast water into rocks, it may cause the faults in the rocks to slip, thus triggering earthquakes. These earthquakes are mostly small, yes. However, fracking can be the main cause for a much bigger and unexpected earthquake. An example of this is the 2011 5.7 magnitude earthquake in Prague, Oklahoma. And for some complementary information, the fracking process itself requires small earthquakes to work. Just let that sink in. In conclusion, fracking is, well, fracking bad. This is due to the aforementioned cons of it, that is how it's obsolete, how it's harmful to the environment, and how it creates earthquakes. So, should we get rid of it? Partly. We obviously literally can't completely get rid of it, and it would cause economic recession to areas that have wholly relied upon it. So, what should we do? We should be aware of the effects that fracking has and be less dependent on it and more dependent on something eco-friendly like renewable energy. So, join the movement against fracking today, so maybe you and I can make a difference.
right, thank you, speaker number 9. And oh, frack, we'll have to stop fracking, all of us. Okay. So let's think, please. What is it that middle school teachers know they should never do? Never ever tell a middle school class that you're afraid of anything, because they're going to make sure that you come face to face with it. As I did one day when we're reading a story about snakes, and I said, ooh, snakes, I can't stand snakes. One morning I walked into my classroom, and there on my, on my seat, right, was a jacket. And I thought, oh, well, some student had forgotten his or her jacket. It seemed to be like a male's jacket. Again, oh, you said I'm picking on the males, right? I can't help it. This is what happened, right? Picked up the jacket, and there underneath the jacket was a little bag, and it had a snake in it. And this was a kid who raised snakes, I understand, from his mother in the basement, in the bathtub, and whatever. And so I did what he wanted me to do. I fracking screamed, and right, yeah. Okay, and with that, we will hear from our next speaker, speaker number 10, Rethink Pink.
In our society today, most things are categorized as either male or female, from the clothes that we buy to our hairstyles to the books that we read. Even products and services that work the same no matter your gender, like razors, deodorant, dry cleaning, and haircuts. Let's say you walk into a store. You're looking for something like shaving cream. You go through the aisles and find some. It's about $2.50. It's marketed for women. You look over and see a similar product, the same size, but marketed for men. The cost of this product is $1.70. This is pink tax. Pink tax, as stated by thebalance.com, is a term for the extra amount of money women are charged the extra amount of money that women are charged for certain products and services that are specifically marketed toward them. Pink tax forces women to pay more for similar and many times identical products and services that men use. These products include, like I said, razors, deodorants, shampoos, dry cleaning, and haircuts. Though these products are not the extent. According to a New York City DCA report, on average, female children's clothing cost 4% more than male children's clothing. And toys and accessories cost 7% more than for boys, except for girls. Huh. Pink tax is seen everywhere in the market, from toys to medicine, and does a big part in increasing women and girls' shopping bills. In December of 2015, the New York City DCA posted an article called From Cradle to Crane, The Cost of Being a Female Consumer. This article shows that 42% of the time, items marketed towards women cost more, and only 40% of the time are these prices equal for men and women, meaning the majority of the time, women are paying more for their needs. Even though we get paid less in the workplace for the same or more work as men, we still have to pay more for our needs. Now, you could argue that we pay more because they're made differently. And yes, sometimes this is true. Many shampoos are made for hair that has dyed or different types of hair. But though some products are made differently, the majority of these products are just packaged in a pink wrapper. It may seem harmless, but pink tax is a form of gender discrimination, and paying more for shaving cream is just a small part of an even bigger problem in our society. According to the American Association of University Women, or AAUW, women working full-time in the U.S. are still paid 83 cents for every dollar a man makes. It's a pay gap that researchers say is likely not to close for 37 years. This disparity has consequences that affect women throughout the entirety of their lives, from when they're just getting started in their career paths to retirement. In fact, in terms of overall retirement income, It's estimated that women only own 70% of the wealth men do. What's more, underneath the wage gap is an even more daunting reality, the wealth gap. Data from the Federal Reserve reveals that women own only 32 cents for every $1 owned by men. If you're angry just hearing this, you're not alone. So what can you do to fight against it? Yes, you can buy gender neutral products or products marketed towards men. Is it fair? Not in the slightest. Is it economical? Yes. You can also support change in legislation and use your voice to speak out against the injustice of pink tax. Overall, pink tax is a big problem in our society and needs to be solved. Though there's not much that can be done, remember to shop smart and speak out against the injustice that you see. There will always be unfair problems in our society, many including sexist views against women. Be sure to be aware of these issues happening in your city and state. I hope that Indiana can outlaw pink tax just as New York did. Outlawing may not fix the whole problem, but it will sure help decrease female shopping bills and is a step in the right direction towards ending gender inequality. Thank you. What do you have to say?
Women of the world unite, okay? There will be a petition at the back of the room right afterwards, okay? Thank you so much, speaker number 10. So many good things to think about. So we can talk about middle school and laugh about all the wonderful things that happen, but there are only 7 more days of school. And I know, and I don't know if you parents know this, but on the last day of school, not only are there students crying in the hallways, but there are teachers crying in the hallways because we do so miss our students. And I love how we follow them out to the buses at that last day and watch as they board the bus. And all of a sudden, everybody's in love with each other. We've forgotten all the times we sent them to detention or after school, whatever, because really, there's that love and that community that's really there and that so many people don't realize because all they hear is the bad. And so I want you to know, parents, that next to you, we love your students the most. You number one, but then we're next. And we call them our babies. They are so much ours. We embrace them. We love them. We correct them just as you do. But they are our hearts and souls, and we spend all of our lives talking about them and living for them. And the best thing ever is when we're walking through Walmart or someplace and we see them and they remember us after 10 or 15 years. So parents, thank you so much for sharing these wonderful young people with us. And with that having been said, frack, it's time now to hear the 11th speaker. Should there be a later start to the school day?
Did you know that fatigue-related car accidents are the leading cause in car wrecks for people under the age of 25? Isn't that insane? Isn't that wild? I mean, imagine. You just learned how to drive, and now you can't even focus on what you just proved you know how to do. I believe that school should start later in the day because students will benefit from their mental health and their physical health, and they will end up doing much better in school. First of all, school should start later in the day because students' mental and physical health will benefit. According to an article called 7 Serious Dangers Sleep-Deprived Teens Face, students who are sleep-deprived are at greater risk of having mental health problems such as depression and anxiety, and physical health problems like obesity and high blood pressure. These are all problems that could drastically affect one's future later on in their lives. This article also states that students who are sleep-deprived are at greater risk of having issues with substance abuse. That's not really good, is it? Secondly, I believe that school should start later in the day because students will end up doing much better in school. According to studies done by Amy Wolfson and Mary Karskadon, PhD, studies have shown that students who go to schools that start later in the day report being able to memorize and focus much better in class. Other studies done by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, or the AASM, have also shown that students who get grades above an A, students who get grades like a B or an A end up getting 25 more minutes of sleep on average every day than the students who end up getting lower grades. Now, I'm aware that some may believe that starting schools later in the day could present problems. One of these problems is parent schedules. These people believe that with parent schedules, people will say that, oh, well, we can't start schools later. It might affect getting the kids to school. While this may be true, I believe that if students have to get themselves up in the morning and get themselves ready to go to school, it could teach them responsibility. So, to summarize, I believe school should start later in the day because students will end up getting much better mental and physical health, and they will end up doing much better in school. As I stand before you today, I want you to think of our future leaders. Is this what you want for them? Do you want them to be tired and sluggish this whole time? If we want our students to start being successful, we need to start giving them the tools that they need. And I believe that one of those is a good night's rest.
All right, we have cookies and punch. I have some ladies serving it to you. If you would like to go grab some refreshments and come back in here. Judges, I'm going to take you to another room so we can decide who our winners will be.
Another applause for all of our wonderful speakers today. I've told them that no one else in the room could do what they've done, and that is stand in front of this assembly and give such remarkable speeches. And so now, speakers, I'm going to name the finalist first. And then if you don't hear your name, it means that you're either the second runner-up, the first runner-up, or the champion. So as I call your school name, I'm going to ask you to come forward and give your name. So first, speaker from Lane Middle School.
Chloe Blosser.
And if you will go to Mrs. Kristen. Thank you. The next finalist from Portage Middle School.
Gloria Lambert.
Yeah, thanks. Next finalist from Shawnee Middle School. That's okay. That's all right.
Yenny too.
Thank you. Thank you. The next finalist from Toll's New Tech School.
Highland Styroff.
Congratulations. Our next finalist from Lakeside Middle School.
Hayden Brown.
Our next finalist from Kikiyanga Middle School. Next finalist from Miami Middle School.
Claire Anna Council.
Our last finalist from Jefferson Middle School.
Kyla Lowe.
And now, drum roll, please. Our second runner-up from Northwood Middle School.
Deanna Palmer.
Congratulations. Our first runner-up from Memorial Park Middle School.
Sam Vantavon.
And what shall we do this or not? The reigning champions. Come on, Mrs. Godfrey. From Black Hawk Middle School.
Luke Ulsh.
The time to stop pollution is now. Let's give them a hand. And then all of our speakers, please stand up. Let's give them all a hand.
Thank you, everybody, so much, and thank you to all of these contestants. They were wonderful. Let's give them one more round of applause. Oh, okay.
Mrs. Kristen,
Yes.
you are Dr. Betty Stein's greatest dream.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we give another round of applause to our judges as well? Thank you for your time this afternoon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.